What you want with grapes is poor soil. So you don't want that rich, nutrient-filled soil that we have down in the Fraser Valley. You want the poor, sandy, rocky soils that we have up here, because what you're looking for is the grape roots to go down and struggle, and that's gives you the best wine grapes, gives you the concentration, which in turn makes good wine. So we have fantastic sun. We have a great environment between the mountains and the lake that moderates a lot of our temperature fluctuations. And we have just this great soil that gives us amazing wine and allows us to grow great grapes.
My name is Evelyn Campbell. I'm the owner of Blasted Church Vineyards, and we're here in the beautiful sunny Okanagan Valley of BC. And I've been here for 19 years. Moved here from Vancouver, and as a third career, I own and operate this lovely winery and vineyard.
The estate is about 70 acres, but we have 40 acres planted, and that's all that can be planted. Everything else is lost to gullies or landscaping or production.
So it actually starts in the winter. In January we start pruning all our old wood off of last year's growth. And then as we get into spring and the plants wake up, we get into tying the vines to the trellising and then shoot thinning so that we have the right canopy structure that we want. And then as we get into summer and we get fruit set, we measure how much fruit we have, and we base it off of conversations with the winemaker as to the quality of fruit we want. And we adjust all our manipulations of the canopy to suit the type of wine that we're going to be making with it.
Every year being fairly different here, we're on in the cusp of a cool climate wine region, so vintage variation is a huge thing. Every growing season is quite different for us. So working with John throughout the growing season, seeing what the climate conditions are, what the kind of evolution in the vineyard's looking like, and making the decisions based off of that for crop level, and you have a pretty good idea of what the kind of wines you're going to be making. You have to kind of adapt along the way, obviously, to what you're given. And then as harvest approaches, you're just out in the vineyards, every day, tasting the grapes to see where they're at. You take samples to the labs. We have our own lab on site here as well to check the sugar content, the acid levels, and all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, taste is the final decision maker on any decision.
So it's keeping in mind the style of wine we want and working with the winemaker in that way, but also changing it weekly and as we go to understand what wine we will get out of it and how to make the best wine with what the season has given us, and growing the best fruit to kind of combine with the seasonality and the wine. So it's a whole puzzle.
It's kind of one of the big draws for me in the wine industry is that I'm science passionately. It's something I enjoy that side of it, and there's also the artistic side and the interpretation of the vintage. So you use the numbers to basically guide you where you need to go. So if you see something kind of evolving quickly with the numbers, and you know that you need to start paying more attention to it yourself, just tasting wise.
The fact that wine changes, like every year is such a different vintage. It's the same block, same property, same everything, but the wine from 2017 and the wine from 2018 are so different. Like in every year, it's just a brand new learning education about what's going to hit the bottle this year. And that's always exciting for me. The fall is just such an exciting time when the grapes come in. We're all excited to see how they're going to present and show, and so every year is something new.
So kind of varies the first fruit that comes off in kind of September, the early whites, and then on through like Pinot Noir, the lighter reds, and into Cab Sauv, Merlot, that kind of thing later in October. So you bring the fruit in, process it with whites, you press it off the skins right away, so you just take the juice, and then just kind of settle out all the heavy sediment, and then ferment off that. So you add your yeast and ferments the sugars into alcohol, and then basically from there you're just in the race to get it ready for bottle.
Because again, coming from the non-agriculture background, I took what we saw, how the vineyards were created, and crunched them into numbers and said, this is the yield, this is the wine we're going to make. And beyond just the beautiful atmosphere and the customers and the clients and visitors who will get to the winery all throughout the summer, I had this idea of how we were going to progress in the growth of our business through the sale of our wines. Now, interestingly, also what I learned in the very early stages, that it's such a unique business because it starts with agriculture and farming, and then it goes into manufacturing what is then produced out of the grapes in the winery, and then the marketing is a huge part of the business because it doesn't matter how well you farm the grapes and how great the wine that you make in the winery, you have to sell it to pay those salaries. It's a huge farming to marketing process, and there's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of people that have a lot of expertise, of which I don't have all of it. So that is the success that I found as an owner, that I had to really empower my staff and my employees with the skill set they have, and making sure that listen to what they can provide and bring to the whole business.
So mostly I oversee. I am Evelyn's right hand, always. That's my most important job, is to be whatever Evelyn needs me to be. So I've learned in my history in the industry, I've learned a lot of different jobs. I worked for a lot of jobs within the winery. I've worked for a lot of different sized wineries, so I'm able to help where I can in different areas. And but mostly I do human resources. I manage the hiring and training, but not for the cellar or winery. The guys, the winemaker and vineyard manager, manage their own staff. I look after the wine shop. I take care of all the packaging requirements and making sure everything is on hand for packaging and bottling.
In New Zealand, there's a university called Lincoln University down there, which has a 3-year program and a 1-year program if you have your undergrad already. And I happened to have mine in business at the time, so I just did the 1 year, which if you're already kind of a bit further along and you've done some kind of introductory university course, then it makes it really easy to get into the wine industry, get a fantastic 1-year education. It's very hands-on. They have a vineyard, they have a winery there, and a lot of people in our BC industry have gone down to Lincoln and studied there and done that course. So it's well known, and it's very hands-on, and it's a good mix of hands-on work and scientific work. So you get a bit of both.
I think more so in the valley now, with more younger people coming up, seeing that it is an actual career path. Me growing up in the prairies, I didn't ever consider that being a winemaker was an actual career path, and then you get into it and you see it more so, the industry evolving here, growing, kind of more money coming into the valley, the evolution of the valley as a whole towards wine production. I think it's just more and more now the kind of the younger guard sort of coming in and making it a much more kind of approachable industry.
If you're coming right out of high school, say, you could go down to New Zealand 3 years. It's a lot easier to get a visa as well if you're going to school. And after 3 years, you're going to have a fantastic foundation. With viticulture, there's still this aspect of almost apprenticeship. You do need to go and work before you can't just go and be a vineyard manager right after. There's so much to it, but you will be leaps and bounds ahead of anybody else that's trying to get a job at a vineyard, because you'll have that educational background, which is still lacking in the industry here. The one piece of advice I could give is to go and do work in the vineyard, is to start out when you have time, get any job you can in the vineyard and experience an entire year, because to have that basis, that foundation of kind of education, but also just information about how it works is so important. This is definitely not a job you want to jump into a managerial role without any experience. You will thank yourself, and it will be so much easier and more fun and enjoyable if you have had the experience in the field doing the work. And it's just fun being out in the field, getting outside every day, rain or shine. It's just enjoyable. So that's something I would say to to anybody getting into it.
It's funny how when you're getting into the industry in the first place, you think, it's going to be, this is what your days are going to be, and then the further into it you get, the more you realize that it's a lot more diverse than that. You're at tastings, you're at dinners, you're traveling all over the place for those types of events, and then people on the ground here, taking them through the cellar, tasting wines out of barrel, tasting wines out of tank, and seeing the vines, walking along the rows. It's huge, just that connection to the final product.